I now have a trio of accounts of the supernatural, pulled from stories found in Supernatural 911 calls by Eve S. Evans. The first is called Phantom Echo. The first account comes from an operator working at a police station's front desk when one night a call came through. It took a few seconds for the call to stabilize, and when it did, only labored, ragged breathing came through at first. Now, it was obviously the sound of someone struggling to breathe, and finally a woman's voice came through, a gasping, wheezing voice. The caller asked for the number of a doctor, which was a weird request, and, it was clear that the woman was in pain, and the operator asked if she wanted her to send an ambulance instead. The woman refused, and again asked for the number of a doctor. Not wanting to distress this lady further, the operator agreed to give her the number of a doctor and set the phone down to look it up because, don't have a doctor's number handy. And she picked up the phone, and estimated 30 seconds later, the line was silent. Not disconnected, but quiet. And she thought perhaps the woman had collapsed, and the operator traced the call and had emergency services sent to the address. The operator stayed on the line until the police arrived. When she heard them pounding on the door, the operator hung up, figuring the police and paramedics could take it from there. And later on, the operator heard what happened after she had hung up, or they had hung up. It didn't necessarily say it was a lady. When the police entered the house, they found the landline off the hook. The house seemed completely abandoned. A layer of dust covered all the surfaces, and the smell of mildew permeated the air. The cops swept the entire house, but concluded that it was empty, and that it had been completely vacant upon the time of their arrival. A member of the ambulance crew that showed up told them that they recognized the house. It said that an older widow, the house's lone occupant, had complained of chest pains and shortness of breath 3 weeks earlier. By the time the ambulance had arrived, she had died of a heart attack. So this house is presumably sat empty for 3 weeks. So was this an echo of a call placed earlier? Was this the woman's spirit still trying to somehow get help? I don't know. Good one. The next, a 911 operator had the following experience. They received a call at around 2:45 a.m. At first, there was complete silence on the line. The call was from a landline, so she was able to look up the address on the computer. But due to its remote location, it would take at least 20 minutes for emergency personnel to get there. The line was open, but the dispatcher was getting no responses when all of a sudden a loud burst of static came over the line, and the operator thought they could hear a woman's voice asking for help, and then the line went dead. Deciding to err on the side of caution, she sent a police cruiser to the address. It was a slow night that night, and they didn't get another call for about 20 minutes when a young woman called in on her cell phone saying that her mother had just collapsed on the living room floor. When the operator asked for the address, it was the same one from the call earlier that night. She asked if the woman or her mother had called from the landline earlier, and they had not. Then, all of a sudden, the operator could hear the pounding on the door as the officer that she dispatched earlier arrived. And if they had not been en route 20 minutes before, they wouldn't have been too late to render assistance to this lady. But as it was, they were able to pack her up and rush her to the hospital, and that saved her life. The operator called the original number back. Maybe somebody else needed help. Maybe that address wasn't right. But when she called back, she found out that line had been disconnected. Somebody's looking out for mama there, I'd say. This next one is called The Barn. And our third account comes from a state police patrolman. On July 23rd, 2009, he's traveling a back road when his patrol car completely lost all power, all electrical power. He managed to steer it into a washed-out driveway of a farmhouse. His radio was as dead as every other electrical component in the vehicle, and nearby power line made his handheld unit useless. So he saw an older gentleman walk from the house to the barn. The old farmer looked at him, but no other way acknowledged him, didn't wave, didn't come up to see what was going on, nothing, just walked to the barn. Patrolman then tried his cell phone, but he had no service, and he needed to contact dispatch. He was dead on the side of the road, his car was. So he walked up to the barn to see if he could use the old farmer's phone. He walked into the milking parlor, the front part of the barn, shouting, "Hello, hello," no response. And he said it was eerily silent in there, but the barn was otherwise in good condition. And he decided the old man must have returned to the house, and he just hadn't seen him do it. So as he turned around to head to the house to ask if he could use the phone there, boom, the farmer was right behind him. It startled him. The farmer then asked him if he was having car trouble. The patrolman admitted that he was and asked to use the phone. The farmer said they could walk back to the house, or if he's going to be quick about it, he could use the phone in the milking parlor. He wanted him to be out there quickly because he's fixing to start milking. Then, as if remembering his manners, the farmer asked if he'd like a glass of water, which the patrolman accepted. It was a hot day. The old farmer led him back inside the barn where an old phone was mounted on the wall. He called his dispatch and informed them, and the dispatch told him they'd have a tow truck there in about an hour. The old man returned with a glass of water, and he said he's having mechanical problems of his own. One of his milking machine pumps had gone down. He's trying to fix it, and he kept wiping grease off his hands with an old rag. He told the farmer, hey, it's going to be about an hour, and the farmer told him they should push his car out of the driveway and back on the road. And the patrolman, in figuring that, the guy wanted him out of his driveway, agreed, and they walked down to the patrol car. On the way there, he said it's half full glass on a picnic table, and they get to the car, and the old man insisted on pushing while the patrolman steered, which, the guy was a bigger guy and capable, but he didn't feel right about having him push while, he, the younger patrolman, steered, and he objected, but the farmer just put his hands on the trunk and started to push, so he jumped in and steered it. And they got the car safely onto the side of the road. And he looked in the rear view and saw the farmer walking back to the barn. About 45 minutes, the wrecker arrived. And the driver just seemed to be in a big rush, like he couldn't get out of there fast enough. He rushed the job as fast as he could. And on the trip back to the State Patrol barracks garage, he was silent and awkward. And when he arrived, there was a crowd waiting for him, which, was weird, as not terribly uncommon for a patrol car to break down and nothing happened, but he was met with this crowd of patrolmen and everybody else just waiting to grill him, and they bombarded him with questions. And one patrolman asked him if he talked to the farmer, and he's like, well, yeah, I talked to the farmer. In fact, the farmer helped me push my car on the road. And everybody's jaw hit the floor. It was just an abnormal reaction of excitement and just disbelief. And, he asked, okay, what's going on? This is clearly something strange happening here. And the record driver proceeded to tell him that in the early 70s, the farmer had shot himself in the milking power of the barn, and that other people had since bought the farm, but nobody could make a go of it. They all sold it and moved out, not long after purchasing it. And it had been set empty up there since the 80s, and it was haunted, obviously. Not believing a word of it, he's like, oh, whatever, you guys are messing with me. And a seasoned officer said, come on, kid, let's go. And they jumped in his patrol car and drove out to the farm. When they arrived, he had found that everything was run down and the grass was overgrown. The trees were, growing through the house and scraping the windshield as they drove up the driveway. There was no signs that anybody had lived there in quite a long time. On the way to the barn, he saw the glass of water that he had left on the picnic table. A thick coat of dust covered everything in the barn, and on the phone he saw fresh fingerprints smudged out of the layer of dust, his fingerprints presumably, and he picked it up and listened for a dial tone. Nothing. The phone was disconnected. It hadn't worked in quite a while. And that was the final straw. He's like, yeah, let's get out of here. This is crazy. There's something abnormal, something unnatural, perhaps supernatural going on. Yeah, I really like this story. It's the physical interactions that do it to me. The old man actually pushing the car, and I failed to mention there were greasy handprints on the trunk of the car to show that was there. Speaking intelligently back and forth, using the phone that worked, and yeah, the man giving him a glass of water that he got from somewhere. These are all physical interactions. And when I first read it, I immediately thought, oh, cool, time slip, right? Like time must work different at this barn since people say it's haunted. And maybe it's, for whatever reason, it's an area for time slips, like he had gone back in time to when the farm was running. And, the farmer helped him out. But, I mean, the thing is the glass of water that he had left on the picnic table was still there. If this had happened, be it, time traveled, for lack of a better word, back to the 70s, that glass would not still be on that picnic table. It's really tempting when you read a story like this and you have your own pet theory, like, oh, I'll just leave the glass out, but that's not how we roll here. So yeah, very interesting. I'm still thinking time slip because it doesn't seem like a classic ghost haunting per se, but nevertheless, it is extremely interesting. I really, really liked it. My favorite one of the bunch, so I saved it for last. Called The Barn. Again, this is from Eve S. Evans, Supernatural 911 Calls. You can pick it up on Amazon. I didn't read from it verbatim. I just, give a synopsis of 3 of the stories to be found in here. So yeah, totally check it out, if you will. I got mine on Amazon. Pretty cool. Pretty good little book of stories in there. And, I call this Supernatural Dispatch Volume 1 because I'm sure we're going to be doing more of these. They are our emergency personnel, and they have all kinds of stories out there, and we'll definitely be revisiting the subject. And, hey, thanks for joining me on this week's Tour of the Strange. I'll be back next week with more tales of high strangeness, but until then, keep it weird out there, y'all.